Okay, young scholars, we're going to finish up our lesson on the Enlightenment. Depending on where your class was, we finished Baron de Montesquieu. We're going to I'm going to go over the key points of Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Mary Wollstonecraft, Adam Smith, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. Um, if your class did any of these particular philosophers, you can just advance to a particular point in the video clip and you can pick up where your individual class left off. So, just to recap, just so we're all on the same page, French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Frenchman who wrote Candide. He argued for religious freedom and called for a separation of church and state. We said in class that he was a student of Descartes. He studied Descartes' thinking, and the big quote associated with Voltaire is, he said, doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is absurd. So that idea, the sea of doubt, the endless seeming of doubt. We get our First Amendment, our freedom of speech, from Voltaire and his works. Next philosopher we talked about in class is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And Rousseau's quote is that man is born free, yet everywhere he is in chains. He was author of the book called The Social Contract, and he argued that every individual is born with natural rights. So he agreed somewhat with John Locke in that regard. Rousseau believed that the majority is the supreme will and that government should have unlimited power to check society's powers. Next, we have Mary Wollstonecraft. I think some of the classes got to Mary Wollstonecraft, but for those of you that didn't, she argues that mind has no gender. And her book is The Vindication Rights of Woman, and it was published in 1792. Now, in the 1700s, women were they were not equal to men. They were not considered as equals. And what happens is she argues that women are not equal to men because women aren't given the opportunity to go to school and obtain an education. But she argues that if you send women to college and if you give women an education or provide them with the opportunity to be successful, they will in turn acquire the same knowledge and character as men. So she's calling for equality among men and women about a century before women in the United States and Great Britain earned the right to vote. All right. Another political philosopher is Adam Smith. And Adam Smith is an economist, so please put that down in your notes. He is an economist. He believes in the capitalist theory of economics. He actually is the father of modern capitalism. The quote associated with him is that man is an animal who makes bargains. He believed in laissez-faire economic policy, which is that government should not be involved in the economy. Can't state this enough. This is a really important slide, and he's a really important person in world history because it's this economic policy that sets up the world as it is. Laissez-faire, it's the idea that government should have no involvement in the economy or the affairs of private business. The book, The Wealth of Nations, was actually written in 1776, the same year that Americans achieved their independence. And it's not coincidental. Adam Smith was a proponent of American independence because the colonists, believe it or not, were arguing that they wanted economic freedom from Great Britain. And Adam Smith, because remember at this time the dominant economic system is mercantilism, Adam Smith was trying to convince people that Great Britain did not need to exert their influence, that if people were allowed to develop their own free market and their free business, they would succeed and thrive in their economy. You don't necessarily have to write this next slide down, but this is Adam's theory played out. And the idea is that Adam Smith believes, like Hobbes, that people act out of self-interest and greed. But he also knows that people often require goods and services that others provide. Therefore, Adam Smith argues that we must exchange money for goods in a way that is beneficial to both parties. And I think the example that I used in class was that, Lowe's and Home Depot are right across the street from each other. And if I wanted to buy a lawnmower, I would look at Lowe's. Lowe's is selling the lawnmower for, $500. Home Depot has it on sale for $450. Well, where am I going to buy the lawnmower from? I'm going to buy the lawnmower from Home Depot because man is an animal that makes bargains. As a consumer, I am looking for a product that I can buy cheaply and efficiently. Adam Smith argues that consumers are looking for things that can be bought at a bargain. And we will explore Adam Smith and the idea of capitalism in much greater detail. All right, that takes us to the American Revolution and the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the two American enlightened philosophers. And in particular, this gentleman here, John Adams, the second president of the United States, and Thomas Jefferson. And here in this painting, Jefferson, Adams, and the Committee of Correspondence, which included Roger Sherman of Connecticut and Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania, they are presenting the Declaration of Independence to John Hancock. Consequently, a scene like this never actually took place in 1776. This was kind of what John Adams called a shin piece because it focused on everyone's shins in the painting. But a scene like this never actually happened on the 4th of July. But nevertheless, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson are the two dominant American minds of the American Revolution. They're known as kind of the North and South Pole of the American Revolution. Thomas Jefferson said that the common man can participate in government, and these men included farmers and the common Virginia gentleman. John Adams was a little bit more elitist. John Adams believed that only the aristocracy, men of privilege and intelligence and wealth, could participate and should participate in government. Thomas Jefferson argued that the government should be a loose confederation of states, meaning the power of the central government should not be stronger than the states. For example, who knows what the students of the Egg Harbor Township High School need better than the Board of Education, better than the mayor of Egg Harbor Township? Thomas Jefferson would argue that the President of the United States doesn't need the power and authority over Egg Harbor Township because they're part of the United States already, but they're in a looser confederation. There's not that need for a federal oversight. John Adams, on the other hand, believed in a strong legislative government. He believed in a strong national government where government is a place to even the playing field for all Americans. Their accomplishments were pretty pronounced. Jefferson wrote the notes on the state of Virginia, and he co-authored the Declaration of Independence. While he physically wrote the Declaration of Independence, the original draft is in his handwriting. He, John Adams, Ben Franklin, and Roger Sherman and the Committee of Correspondence together jointly weighed in and edited the document as we know it today. Final point for Jefferson is that government should include skilled workers, small farmers, and plantation owners. John Adams argues that people who own property and were educated should participate in government. A little bit redundant back to our first point, but it really emphasizes the fact that in one day, one of these philosophies will become the Republican Party, and one of these philosophies will be the Democratic Party. And we'll talk a little bit more about our American political parties as the year progresses. But the foundation is laid with Jefferson and Adams. And where we're going from here, we're going to continue with the Age of Reason, the English Civil War, which we discussed, the American Revolution, 1776 to 1789, and then the French Revolution, 1789, and then Latin American revolutions. So ultimately, this age of enlightenment really kicks off this time period of just revolution and people overthrowing kings and queens all around the world. That's why the American Revolution is often called the shot heard around the world. So if I went too fast, or if you need to watch one of these clips again, just go back, watch it again, make sure your homework is all up to speed, and I will see you in class.